Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well. Um, I'm just going to get into this conversation tonight. I um, think it is something that if we have not really been um, paying attention to, I think we should um, pay attention. You know what I mean? I think it is so um, important. And I think at the end of the day, that's where we should be. Um, and I think a lot of things are just, up in the air, and we're trying to some of us are trying to, figure things out and, where we going with so much that's happening in our world, right? And at the end of the day, we have to look on some things. So um, it's a lot of disturbing things that are happening in our world, and it continues to happen. And stuff have to be spoken to, and things have to be spoken, against. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that's just something that we need to really consider. We need to recognize, we need to pay attention, because so much is going on, and it's just a sad situation across the board. And if we don't speak on certain things, and so I think it's just so important that we make sure that we are aware of things, speak to certain things, and it's just some things we just gotta really pay attention to, and sometimes we don't pay attention to a lot. So hope everybody's doing okay. Um, I just So I just want to talk about something on a brief note, or I try to be brief as possible. And there's a lot to cover, but I'm not going to cover a lot. So, Father bless us. Amen. So, fear mongering and Sonya Massey. This particular point in time that we're in, our our time of contemplation and dealing with all that is happening now in our world should have us at a place of concern. Yet and still, I looked at a lot of things, and I'm examining a lot of things, and some things just keep being repeated, and you don't like it. And I'll never put every police officer, and that is including those who are white, those who are non-black. I won't put every police officer on the same scale, on the same level, in the same category of others. I know of some who are non-black. I know some that are white. When specifically, who are not in agreement with a lot of the things that are going on. And I want to say something, even as it relates to, and I didn't put that in the topic form, but even as it relates to, the Project 2025, that's almost 1,000 pages, right? Who was that was talking about it? Oh, my little bro, who spoke so well at our youth congress last week, Malik Morris. And he was talking about contracts. And there are certain things that we don't read. And when we don't read them, we really don't come into the place of understanding. We really don't come to the place of understanding the totality of what it is. And, oh, I didn't understand that. Oh, I didn't know that was there, because we don't take the time to read. That Project 2025 was a lot to read. And so I know there's 4 pillars. It's not where I'm going tonight, but maybe it is because of the whole fear mongering thing. And some of the things that I read, I'm in agreement with. Some of the things I'm not in agreement with. We are in a place, and I said this Sunday as I ministered. America is in such a place right now where it's like we're trying to rebuild our walls, so to speak. We're trying to rebuild on rubbish. We're trying to rebuild on things as it relates to this country. And we are not in a healthy place. We are not in a healthy place, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you view it. The United States of America is not in a healthy place. It has not been in a healthy place for quite some time. It just didn't start with President Joe Biden. It didn't start with former President Trump. Didn't start with former President Obama. Didn't start. This thing has been, if you will, building up. I don't know if I want to use the word matriculating, evolving for quite some time. And if there's ever a time that we need to pay attention to things, it has been. Even the history of things, I like to read. And that's why I'll take some time to look at some things longer than normal, because I want to be for sure. I'm just talking to my boy Brandon Jones about this not too long ago. And you have to read, because if you don't read, you'll be dealing with stuff from a Democratic perspective. And if you don't read, you'll be dealing with something from a Republican perspective, whether you are a part of those particular parties, independent or whatever. You have to learn how to take the time to read. And I want to encourage all of us to understand certain things. And we need to understand that former President Trump can say a whole bunch of stuff all he wants when it comes to certain things. But we have a constitution, right? We have our legislative branch. We have our executive branch. So we have what our legislative branch that makes the law. We have our executive branch, that enforces the law. And then we have the judicial branch that interprets the law. I think somehow, some way between those 3, that things become convoluted. And I think when we begin to examine these things, it is very important, because what it seems to me is that there are a lot of things that are convoluted. There are a lot of things that are being reinterpreted. And of course, I don't know how you think about it, but sometimes I look at the Constitution like I look at the Bible. And you say, well, what does that mean? That means for me that sometimes the interpretation is lost because we fail to remember the context in which something was written in order to bring it to make it applicable to where we are right now. And this is a very, very challenging moment, because a lot of things are starting to be reinterpreted. We are on a fear-mongering moment. We're in a place where just when you might think you out of something, something else happens. And there's a responsibility that we need to have. I look at, give you an example about the lack of reading, right? The lack of reading. So, with former President Trump dealing with all his 34 or whatnot convictions, and how is this known felon, the argument is, how is a known felon able to run for president? And and so you're like, how is that possible that a known felon is able to run for president? And do you look at our people who come out of jail, they come out of these places, and you're like, well, these people come out of jail, they're not allowed to vote, they're not allowed to express their perspectives, they're not allowed to vote, they can't get jobs. And you mean to tell me this man is able to still keep a job and still be able to run for the president of the United States? May I suggest to you that the problem is not the former President Trump. The problem is what the qualifications are. And maybe with these situations, even now, I think President Biden wants to establish certain terms and term limitations, and by which a person can do it. Well, of course, we're going to say that now, but there are certain things that should be done there. Case in point, the Constitution lists only, and I could be wrong, at least 3 to 5, and at least 3 qualifications for the presidency. The president must be at least 35 years of age, be a natural born citizen, and must have lived in the United States for 14 years. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. 35, natural born citizen, and at least in this country, at least 14 years. And you can run for president at least 35 years of age. I have not looked into why 35. I have not looked into, okay, it's 35, natural born citizen, it must have lived in the United States for, so if you're a natural born citizen, you must have lived in the United States for at least 14 years. I'm not going into, why is it that? However, those 3 are the qualifications to run for the president of the United States. Well, you could have been a murderer, but if you 35, right? Or unless there are certain things within the law, right? That's another thing we got to look at. We have to look at different states. And I learned this years ago, even more so during the George Floyd murder, and doing that Derek Chauvin moment. What one law interprets as law in one state is totally opposite in another. Second degree to a Californian, to us, I'm going to speak to us, I'm in California. Second degree for us, seeing that the officer Chauvin did that in the heat of passion, or there got to be some type of cause. Well, the third degree in Minnesota is a total different angle. It's a total different perspective as it relates to murder. And like I said, the third degree in Minnesota is totally different from other places, right? And so when you think about third degree murder and all of that, it's different. We may not like it, But it's different, and which is why during George Floyd's situation is why that one took a little bit more precedence over. Like under the statute, an individual may be guilty of third-degree murder if, without intent to cause the death of another person, they cause their death through imminent dangerous action with a depraved mind and without regard for life. Okay, that's Minnesota's law, right? That's how they deal with it. Another definition of third degree is the unintentional kill of another through an imminently dangerous act committed with a depraved mind and without regard to law. So that's it, right? So in Minnesota, you have third degree, you have second degree, you have first degree. But like I said, those things are different. All right, if that makes sense. Okay. Let me do something. Hold on, as they say, as I've been hearing people say, stand by. Okay, sorry about that. So you get what I'm saying as it relates to that. So now when we look at what's happening in our world now, and we look at what's going on in the Sonya Massey situation, very horrible situation. Let me see if I can show. Let me see if I can show. Some of us have seen it. Some of us may not have seen it. I just want to go to the part from the beginning, and then I'll move on from there. So let me just get that, and then we'll move. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna just play this, and then I'm gonna play this, and it's a very interesting situation across the board. Okay, here we go.
Let me see if I can help me.
What do you want help with?
Huh?
What do you want help with?
I heard somebody outside.
Yeah, we checked your house. We checked your backyard. I walked all the way through all these backyards. We checked your front yard.
But you know what I want? I want justice for my baby.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You killed the wrong black woman this time.
Amen. Amen.
What is your last name?
Uh,
Shouldn't have to think about your last name. You're not in trouble. I just need to text.
Massey. Massey.
You have an ID? That'd make things so much easier. I just need to get just driver's license will do.
But I want to tell y'all, the sheriff is here is an embarrassment. Because this man should have never had a badge. He should have never had a gun. He should have never been given the opportunity to kill my child.
I don't know where my ID is.
You have that step there, maybe?
1 second.
Check my
Let me get this.
We don't need a fire while you're
Right.
Huh?
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I would rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
Huh?
Rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
No, that's where I got. I'll shoot you straight in your face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the clock. Drop the clock. Drop.
This man had 2 convictions for DUI. He had a conviction for driving under the influence. And he was a member of law enforcement? What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment to this country, to this county.
Okay. Now, I did that because I think it is important to understand the whole scenario. Sorry about that. I think it's so important for us to look at everything. And when I look at that, she called because she said she heard something. Whether this person had a mental illness or not, nothing in this video should have been put her in like she was a threat to this particular officer. It just shouldn't have been. He was kicked out of the Army for the first of 2 drunken driving convictions. It says before his policing career began with 6 jobs in 4 years, the first year which were part-time. The 30-year-old Sean Grayson was convicted twice within a year of driving under the influence, was costing his hitch. And this is off of, what is this? Forget the press, AP. I can't think of the Association Press. All right. I'm just going to read some of the things. Grayson, who has since been fired, is charged with first-degree murder, aggravated battery with the firearm, and official misconduct in the death of Massey, a 36-year-old Black woman who had called 911 about a suspected prowler at her home in Springfield, 200 miles, Chicago. Grayson, who is white, has pleaded not guilty. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. Let's see. Grayson, who enlisted in the Army in 2014, was charged with DUI in, I don't know how to say this, Macoupin County, just south of Sangamon County, after traffic stops on August 10th, 2015, and again on July 26th. The first DUI led to a discharge from the military in February 2016 for serious misconduct, according to a U.S. official who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss personal information, adding that Grayson had an unregistered gun in his car, but because of where he was, there was an open arm state. All right, so Kansas has an open arm or open carry firearm law. Something else I read, let me see if I can find it. All right, so before he came to Springfield, Grayson worked for a year as a deputy sheriff in Logan County, just to the northeast. According to a report obtained under public records request, he was told he needed more training, including high-stress decision-making classes in November 2022 after he failed to follow an order to halt a high-speed pursuit, reaching speeds of 110 miles per hour before colliding with the deer. Okay? When he applied at Logan, an employment report from Auburn, south of Springfield, where he had worked previously, showed that while Grayson was always early for work, eager for training, receptive to criticism, and had not faced disciplinary action, he struggled with report writing, was not great with evidence, left items laying around office, and was a bragger. All right. The Logan County records also include complaints of misconduct from 2 people Grayson arrested, including one in which a woman who admitted to having drugs in a body cavity claimed Grayson gave her a glove and told her to remove the contraband in front of him and another male officer. She later was taken to the hospital to have removed and claimed Grayson burst through the curtain during the procedure. He denied both complaints and resigned from Logan County before the investigation was complete. Okay. And then you can tell, something is not right. So Grayson, the other officer, didn't find no evidence of a prowler and waited several minutes for Massey to answer. During which time Massey makes a comment. Grayson rather makes a comment that she's dead inside and calls the patient for her. And then, they see no evidence. There's nothing in this that shows you and I that she should have been mauled down the way she was, shot in the eye or in the eye or under the eye, according to an autopsy. Why am I bringing this up? This is some of the things. So former President Trump wants to give immunity, if you will, to all officers. And he based that upon the officer, I think it's Timothy Diller, I think I'm saying his name right, who was shot not too long ago. I look at this like this. All right. They already have, police officers have, I believe it's called qualified immunity, which says that there's a certain, they won't be charged criminally for certain actions that are not, if what they did was not against the violation of the law or was established as law enforcement or in the Constitution. But I want to share something with us because I think it's so important to understand, because Trump can say whatever he wants to, right? And some things he's saying that seems real, not unnecessary to say. For example, he expressed, in one of his rallies, we're going to give our police their power back and we're going to give them immunity from prosecution. Now, at what point have the police officers not have their power? Okay. I don't know. I've not known police officers not to have power. Now, if he's on the tangent of talking about they're not going to have power because, or giving back their power because they're being prosecuted for certain egregious, horrible, horrendous, despicable, unethical, unnecessary ways of doing things, then there it is. He wants to talk about restoring law and order. Before we restore law and order, let's see why certain things were placed or put into position or put into place, right? I am a firm, let me say this very strongly and publicly. I am not for defunding the police. Now, I know there are people who believe that. I'm not for defunding the police. Yes, I know we've had some very racist, unnecessary situations, but I'm not for defunding the police, because who are you going to call when it is an emergency? Like who you going to call for a prowler, a robber, domestic violence? Now, is training needed for more so when it comes to people with mental health situations? Absolutely. But who are you really going to go at and call? I think that's a ridiculous thing, even as it relates to the Los Angeles Unified School District and any other district who feels within themselves that we don't need that. You need school police. People should not, they shouldn't have them on campus. Well, why not? You know, I don't care what anybody says, the presence of a police officer, right, wrong, or indifferent, causes people not to want to do certain things. Come on, you all know that speed. You know, y'all know when we speeding, but we see that trooper on the side. We know we out of pocket. We slow down. We know we're not supposed to be speeding at that point in time. We know it. But what are we doing? Soon as we out of some of us, soon as we, because I've done it, soon as that person is out, I'm moving back. I know it's 65, but I'm about to hit that 70, right? And you know, and sometimes they give you grace, but you can't be doing 75 in the 65 mile per hour zone. Y'all get what I'm saying? And so it's necessary for them to have. But I think what we fail to realize is, you know, he ain't got as much power as he think he does. And no president does. All right. So he talks about we're going to get the power back. All right. And so between police and prosecutor, law enforcement officers are already some of the most powerful people in government. All right. So he says he wants to give them immunity from prosecution. So now he's going more. All right. This is more concrete and a reminder of the former president's views on government accountability. Now, most Republicans don't want the federal government to have a lot of authority and power. They want to resort some of those things back to the state. I get it. There are some things I don't think the government should be a part of, just like not all that I've read, like I mentioned about Project 2025. There are some things they want to dismantle, and I don't know the totality of it because I have not read it, all Department of Education. There's lies going around as it relates to critical race theory. There are some evangelical, there are some people that I follow and I like some of their theological perspectives and some I don't. But it's like we have this weird understanding that critical race theory is about making people feel less than. I am grateful, you know, even at my job, I'm grateful that they're going to start allowing more African-American stories. You know what I'm saying? It's not just about, what did the white man do? We have some successful, powerful Black people in our culture. Black, all right, who have made some powerful decisions. Like historically, have we forgotten about Shirley Chisholm? Why are we acting like, oh my God, we've never had this before? What are you talking about? VP Harris is not the first woman, Black woman, if you will, that has ever run for presidency. Shirley Chisholm did it back in the day, with the 1960s, 70s, or somewhere around there. There were some other Black women who ran for presidency that were Black. So let's not get caught up in, we're about to make history. Could have made history a long time ago if we're going on the history-based thing. But my point of bringing that up, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, right? Now, if you're not a Christian, what I'm getting ready to say is probably not going to mean nothing to you. But I'm going to say this, as Christians, we pray that the will of the Lord be done. And that whomever, we trust the sovereignty of God. We trust that whoever he allows to be in this position, that we're going to be okay. Don't have to like Donald Trump. Don't have to like Kamala Harris. Don't have to like whomever. All right. But we trust that whomever is in position, right? Whoever is in position, that will be all right. With that being said, he don't have that much power and authority that he thinks he has, right? Case in point, all right? President Trump would be extremely constrained in I can't say the word, immunizing, I can't say that word, immunizing anyone. All right. That's including police officers from prosecution, because most criminal proceedings are in state court where his power wouldn't apply. And even though we have some that are charged federally for alleged misconduct, where he could probably lobby to the Department of Justice to refuse any charge, to refuse to charge any police officer, those prosecutions are in addition to state charges. Okay? So that right there is something different. Okay? So like Derek Chauvin I was talking about, who was convicted in Minnesota court of murdering George Floyd. After that trial concluded, he pleaded guilty to federal charges and Trump could certainly pardon him during another term in the Oval Office. And then that would make no material difference in the amount of time Chauvin spends in prison. His state sentence was like 22 and a half years. Federal was 21 years. So the only noticeable effect would be a change of venue. So we have to look at that. And then let's look at it. We know in this country, it is true that police officers are rarely prosecuted to begin with, despite a handful of high-profile trials that have captured our attention. But no one should be criminally charged because the political movement appears to demand it. All right? And so no one should be immunized simply because it plays well with a political constituency, if that makes sense. Right? So nobody should be jailed because we're demanding it. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody should be going forth because we're demanding it. And it shouldn't become because I'm about to make this a political thing. We're paying with people's lives. Right? And then I read something that's very disturbing, too, that at 52 I should have known. But I ain't gonna fake the funk like I did. I knew that because I didn't know. Now what am I making reference to? Did you not know that? How can I word it? So we're talking about protecting people, thinking that police officers, and this is what's happening, is giving the above the law stuff, right? That, okay, you can live above the law, and because you're a police officer, you can live above the law. But this is where I think a major issue and a problem has come. I read somewhere, and I can't remember where, and I'm trying to remember the wording so I won't miss it. But I was reading where, let's say, for example, someone has been tried, right? And if, for example, whoever this is that has been tried, if that particular thing that they've been accused of or charged of, there is nothing in the past that has any record that goes against what is considered clearly established law, that person can get away. All right, not get away in that sense, but they won't be charged. All right, let me see. I think I found it. Okay. Let me see. Oh, I thought I had it. Okay, I'm just trying to find it. Hold on, y'all. So here it is. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine established by the Supreme Court that protects government officials, including police, from personal liability for constitutional violations unless the right infringed was clearly established. Here's the key, y'all, at that time. Clearly established law, as stated in 2018 Supreme Court decision, District of Columbia versus Westby, means that at the time of the officer's actions, the legal standards were clear enough that any reasonable officer would know that what they were doing was unlawful. Therefore, in order for a victim of misconduct to have success suing a government official, they must prove the following. Number one, the evidence indicates that the conduct was unlawful. Two, the officers or government officials were aware or should have been aware that their action violated a clearly established law as determined, here it is, by a prior court case that deemed similar police actions illegal. As a result, courts may recognize rights violations, but still deny victims legal recourse, leaving many who are wrongfully incarcerated without justice. Now you're saying, well, Loughridge, what does that have to do with anything? Okay. All right. So here's why qualified immunity could be a problem. Okay. There's something that's called blocked accountability. It makes it nearly impossible to hold officials, particularly law enforcement, accountable for rights violations unless there is direct precedent. A direct precedent refers to a previously decided legal case that addresses the same specific issues and circumstances as a current case and therefore guides the court's decision. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay. So that means that, let's say something comes up and the person is being tried for a particular situation or they violated something. Listen to this. This is why a lot of individuals, their DNA has come up, and this bothers me now, but now because they have so many cases. So when there have been people who've been accused of murder, right? Many of our people that have been accused of murder and they've been in jail and now they've been exonerated, right? But at the time, the person who was doing the DNA or whoever was doing the report didn't put a certain thing inside. And here it is. If there was nothing clearly established prior to that violation, then that person would not be able to sue them for not following an clearly established law because it was not something that was specifically discussed in the time before. Does that make sense? All right. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well on Instagram. All right. So I'm saying, I hope that makes sense. All right. So let me try to read something to kind of give you an idea. All right. Okay. So Levon Brooks and Kennedy Brewer were wrongfully convicted, and for Brewer sentenced to death in Mississippi of separate murders in 1992 and 1995 and served years in prison. After being exonerated by DNA, which also identified the actual perpetrator of both murders, they sued forensic pathologist Dr. Stephen Hain and forensic dentist Dr. Michael West, who provided the most important evidence for the prosecution. Dr. Hain and Dr. West were retained by the state and testified at each trial. The lawsuit alleged that both doctors either intentionally or recklessly falsified their claims that human bite marks were present on the victims' bodies when in fact the marks were the result of normal, listen to this, post-mortem decomposition. The Fifth Circuit found that because the doctor defendants were entitled, here it is, to the defense of qualified immunity, neither Mr. Brewer nor Mr. Brooks will be permitted to engage in the usual comprehensive federal discovery to prove their claims. Instead, the Fifth Circuit affirmed the grant of summary judgment and dismissed the civil rights lawsuit. At least 35 other people have been cleared, having first been wrongfully convicted, arrested, or charged based on the use of bite mark evidence, a now widely discredited science. Okay, now I want you to see that. Let me give you one more. Armand Valasana was wrongfully convicted in Missouri for kidnapping, rape, and sodomy. Mr. Valasana was exonerated by DNA and crime lab notes not disclosed prior to his trial. Mr. Valasana sued the crime lab over constitutional violations under Brady for not disclosing exculpatory documents that could have proved his innocence. However, the Eighth Circuit ruled that the laboratory serologist involved was entitled to qualified immunity. The court justified its decision by stating that the Supreme Court had not mandated that law enforcement officers, aside from prosecutors, have a duty to disclose such information. Now, you see how this is going? You see where this is going? You see? So in other words, because something was not clearly established before, even though there's clear evidence that this person was not guilty and the DNA proves it, but because there was not a previous case load that showed you, right, that showed you a case like Villasana, I think I'm saying his name right, Villasana, because it was not something previously done, guess what? Because of the qualified immunity, that person could not continue successfully suing, even though he was wrongfully placed in jail. DNA was exonerated, but because there was no established thing before, and because there was nothing that said they had to disclose it before. You see what I'm going? This is what's happening. And this is the issue that we're having now. This is why we have to read. We have to know what the laws of California are when it comes to qualified immunity. That there are times that, they won't be able to be tried civilly and sometimes criminally. But I bring that off to say that former President Trump can say whatever he wants to say. But he is restricted because there's certain things that's state-driven. I think you need to look at, Amendment 10, that says that the federal government, either by what's established by the Constitution or that's prohibited by its states, stops or prohibits the federal government from coming into certain places. And I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that, and I'm in agreement with it with this perspective, I think the government should not make mandatory decisions when it comes to certain things that I think is state-oriented. I think when the state cannot come to a resolve, then you go to the highest, the federal. Then you go there. But there are certain things that need to be established, like the whole Roe versus Wade situation. I think there's certain things that needs to be established. But if if I remember correctly, even this qualified immunity thing, historically, if I remember correctly, has its root in racism, has its root in, racism, meaning that there's certain things that have been established back in the day. I read something about that, and it's very interesting. So this originated back in 1967 at the end of the civil rights movement as a part of the federal civil rights law. Qualified immunity was meant to balance holding officials accountable and protecting them from frivolous lawsuits while performing their duties. Okay, but in that time, many argued that the doctrine signaled a retreat from the protections afforded to Black victims of racial terror by the Civil Rights Act of 1871, which was also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act. So in 1982, the Supreme Court decision in Harlow versus Fitzgerald further shielded public officials from accountability by stating that officials are immune from prosecution unless they violate clearly established rights known to any reasonable person, raising the bar for plaintiffs to challenge abuse. So I want you to realize the Civil Rights Act of 1871 was known then as the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was against us as a people because the Black people were the victims of racial terror. This is some interesting stuff. So this is going against individuals who were not, or who were considered innocent, but because these laws have been established. Okay? So we got to realize that. So in 1871, all right, Congress passed a law allowing lawsuits against state and local authorities who all right, I don't know what happened. All right, I don't know. It just, I'm like, oh, my thing is charging. I don't know what just happened. Yeah, I don't know. My computer just shut down. I guess somebody don't want me talking about it. Woo. All right, I'm about to close it down anyway. That's crazy. It just shut all the way down. All right. So I don't know. So let me conclude what I was saying. That's crazy. It just shut all the way down. That was the weirdest thing in the world. Okay, so Americans were first empowered to challenge police misconduct in 1871 when Congress passed a law allowing lawsuits against state and local authorities who refuse to protect African Americans from racial lynchings and other acts by the group's Ku Klux Klan. In 1967, the Supreme Court limited that right by announcing a legal doctrine called qualified immunity to protect government employees from frivolous lawsuits. Instead, Supreme Court precedent has effectively created, as Justice Sonya Sotomayor put it, an absolute shield against accountability for police officers accused of using excessive force. Okay, do you see that? So qualified immunity is a court-created rule that limits victims of police violence and misconduct from holding officers accountable when they violate a person's constitutional right. The doctrine provides that a police officer could not be put on trial for unlawful conduct, including the use of excessive or deadly force, unless the person suing proves that, one, the evidence showed that the conduct was unlawful, and two, the officer should have known they were violating clearly established law because a prior case has already deemed similar police actions to be illegal. So even if a person can demonstrate that the police officer acted unlawfully, the officer will not be liable unless both prongs have been satisfied. The second requirement provides an especially powerful shield for officers because courts often require a nearly identical case to use as clearly established precedent. Are y'all catching this? So both things have to be. So in order for this person to have qualified immunity that keeps them from being prosecuted, both things. So you can have evidence that this was unlawful, complete evidence. However, if that officer did not know about the clearly established law, because there has not been a prior case already deemed similar, that's illegal, then guess what? They'll be free. Do y'all get what I'm saying? It's crazy. So I want us to understand the laws of the land and the laws in which we occupy. And let's all get involved. And let's get involved in your local. Let's get involved in our state. Let's get involved in this. It is so crucial. I think it is so important that we get here, because, like I said, they already covered. Police officers are already covered, and I don't want every police officer to have to suffer. But at the same time, when stuff has been done wrong, like the Sonya Massey situation, and then I think there was a 4-year-old boy or something like that. I think Massey. I think there was a 4-year-old boy or something like that shot too. But I can't remember. Okay, so there's a 4-year-old boy that was shot in Illinois. Okay, so the 4-year-old boy shot in Illinois. This is way back in March. So on March 16th, Macomb police were dispatched to a home to investigate reports of domestic violence. Officers broke into the apartment, saw a woman with multiple stab wounds, and confronted a man armed with 2 knives. That man, later identified as 57-year-old Anthony T. George ran into a room and then popped around the corner holding a knife to the throat of a 4-year-old Terrell Miller, the son of the stabbing victim. One of the officers fired one shot, killing both George and Miller. McDowell County prosecutor said that the officer involved in the shooting will not be charged with a crime after review by a special prosecutor from Illinois State Attorney's Appellate Prosecutor's Office found no basis for criminal charges. So the release of the video footage in Terrell Miller's death come just a week after Illinois State Police released videos showing a Sangamon County Sheriff deputy shooting and killing 36-year-old Sonya Massey inside her home after she called 911 to report. So it's crazy. Like, the kid gets shot because the guy has the knife, and the boy gets shot. I don't, I'm not in that situation, but it's sad across the board. So, all right, I got to stop. All right, so let's not get caught up in the fear mongering. Let's read, and let's get better understanding. All right. Hope I've provoked us to go look into more understanding of the laws of the land, and let's read, and let's not let fear mongering get us. All right, that's it. Y'all have a good night. I ain't gonna lie, I got distracted when that thing knocked me off, but it's good. All right, good night, y'all.